Hello there, Mrs. Elke here, and thank you for joining me on Elke Art. I'm so happy you found this video and found my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a watercolor painting, but not how I normally paint watercolors. It's called watercolor mosaics. If you're not familiar with mosaics, remember that mosaics are basically like little pieces that are put together to make a big picture. Usually when we think mosaics, we think of ceramics or tile or glass pieces that are all put together and then grouted in between to make a beautiful picture. Even your kitchen floor might be considered a mosaic if it's tile and it has the little grout in between. But I wanted to get a little creative with watercolor painting and make what I'm calling my watercolor mosaic art. And in this case, doing a Christmas tree. So you'll see that it looks like a bunch of little pieces that are put together, but really it's just painted that way. If I zoom in for you, you can see that I have lots of different shades of each of the colors filling in the parts of this picture. So join me today. I'll show you how I created this nice little Christmas tree painting, and you can try it with a tree yourself, or if you want to do something else that's similar, you could do that as well. It's really a fun technique. I thought it was very therapeutic to sit there and paint piece by piece. Maybe you will enjoy the process as well. So turn on some nice Christmas music maybe and get to making some beautiful Christmas art. I'm working on a 6x9 piece of watercolor paper, and I want to outline my drawing first. So I'm going about 3 fingers from the top, 3 fingers from the bottom of my paper, and I'm just making a really light triangle. Now it's important you press lightly with your pencil because we will want to erase these lines later. And you can definitely work on a different size piece of paper than what I'm doing, but I'm just doing a nice little small one. So you can see my really light triangle for the shape of my Christmas tree. I want to add a star to the top. So again, I'm just going to press down very lightly to try to make a star shape as the top part of my Christmas tree. Bringing them in and then going down here on both sides of the tree. There we go. I also want to add a base to my Christmas tree, so I will add the little trunk at the bottom, and then I want to put kind of like a big pot or something that the Christmas tree is in. So just a basic shape. If you want to do a different base than I have, go for it. That totally works. All right, so there is my very lightly drawn Christmas tree and base. Next, I want to get ready to do some watercolor painting. So I have a little pointed brush. I also will be using a flat brush at times, but I'm starting off with a round brush, and I'm working with some yellow, and I want to go really close to my pencil line, but try not to go all the way to my pencil line if possible. So I want to leave a little bit of space next to my pencil line. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw some shapes and then fill them in with watercolor. I'm going to be very, very careful when I do this to leave some space in between my shapes, just like you would a mosaic. That would be like the grout lines. The shapes don't really matter. I try to keep mine kind of triangular or rectangular at times, nothing too crazy. And it works better if you have some straight lines to work with so that when you make other shapes, you're not having to paint around some crazy shapes. But of course, with the different positioning of some of these, you may have to have some shapes that look different, not perfect squares, not perfect triangles, but maybe some other shapes as well. So I'm just going in and filling each of these little sections of the star with triangles, and then we'll fill in the center with whatever shapes fit. Now, as I'm painting this, I also am playing around with the shade of the color that I'm using. So for my yellow, I could mix a tiny bit of orange with my yellow to make it more golden, or a tiny bit of brown with my yellow, just to kind of add some variety to the color. Mosaics are usually prettier if they have a variety of the color instead of just one uh, shade of green, for example. We'll use light greens, medium greens, dark greens, blue greens, warmer greens like greens mixed with yellow, just to make sure that it is interesting. So now that I've done my star, I'm going to go ahead and move on down to my Christmas tree. And just like I did with that one, I'm going to start with a basic shape right by the pencil lines, not quite all the way to the pencil line. And then I'm going to fill it in with my watercolor. And then I'll go ahead and continue that process all the way down my Christmas tree. Now, each time I might mix a little bit of a different green. So this one's a little bit more of a blue green, where you can see the one that I started off was more of a warm green. So you can kind of play around with those different shades, different tints of the color that you're working with, and that will just give it more of a sparkle when you're done. You can also play around with starting with green and then maybe dropping in a color while it's still wet. So I could use the same exact green for all of these, but then I could add a little bit of yellow while it's wet or a little bit of blue while it's wet, and that would also make each one look a little bit different. You can also control how much paint versus how much water you use. So if I make it a little bit extra watery, it'll be lighter when it's done, where if I have a little bit more paint, it will be darker when it's done. So playing around with the value is also a great way to make this mosaic come to life. So I'll have warm color, cool color, and then I'll also have light value and dark value and medium values. And all of those are great ways to add variety to the colors. All right, here you can see my greens that I used all the way down my tree. And you can notice that I did it kind of in rows, but the pieces are not all exactly the same size. Now I'm going to move on and do the base of my tree. The base is going to be brown, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did with my greens with my browns. And if you want to, you can change up the shape a little bit. Maybe for this one you want to use long skinny pieces, or maybe for this one you want to use a larger piece, just a single piece for the trunk. So you can really play around with that too. They don't all have to be the same size and shape. You can really play around with the variety there as well. I'm filling in the base of my tree too, just by throwing in some other greens. I could use other colors for this too. It really doesn't matter, but I'm going to fill this in as well until my entire tree, trunk, and base are all filled with little mosaic pieces. At this point, I want to go ahead and move to the background of my painting. You can see that I switched to a flat brush for the background because I actually want to do some larger pieces. I feel like if you change the size of your pieces for the background, it can kind of help differentiate it from what your main topic is. In our case, the Christmas tree. Sometimes I like working from maybe the more difficult shapes, like around the star first, and then filling in around that later. But you can see that my shapes are maybe twice the size of my Christmas tree ones, and because the space is really big, that'll make it a little bit easier to fill it up. I'm not going to go with just the regular shapes in the background. I want to kind of change it up a bit, but if that bothers you, you could always try to go for more square shapes too, or maybe all triangles or something like that to make it different as well. So definitely working around the star is a little bit trickier, so I want to kind of do that first to try to figure that out and go right up against my Christmas tree too, and then kind of work my way to the outside edge of my paper. I'm really trying to take my time with this, and just like I did on my Christmas tree, I can play around with different shades of red. So I can do cooler reds that might have a tiny bit of blue mixed in them, or I could do warmer reds with a little bit of orange mixed in them, or I could even add a little bit of purple to my reds too. So you can kind of play around with the different shades. Brown is another one that you can mix with red, and that will give you more of like a brick red look. So you can kind of play around with the different variations of that. You can also use different values with your reds, just like we did with our greens. So you can do some lighter reds by using a little bit more water, or darker reds by using a little bit more paint. You could always come back in and add a second coat to some of these too after they're dry. That's another great way to add extra darkness or value to your red. I'm going to continue working all the way around my tree just like this, adding different shapes, filling in the space, trying to make sure that there's not a bunch of the same color red right next to each other. So I like to change it up a little bit and move them around so that I have the entire background filled in. For my picture, I'm going to leave a little bit of a white border around the outside just because, but you could always paint right off the edge too. So that's totally up to you. But I'm really liking how this is looking. And of course, red and green are complementary colors. So putting red next to green can really help make the green pop out. So that's kind of nice. All right, I'm going to continue working all the way around my tree and we'll see how it turns out. And here you have my completed Christmas tree with all of the different pieces colored in to look like a mosaic. I really enjoyed this project and hope that you did too. I think it would be super fun to do with all kinds of different topics or subjects. So have fun with this and let me know how you liked it in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you visit me again on Elke Art.